I'm Cassandra Hearn, a top divorce litigator in California. I have a passion for educating you through your own divorce process. I've taken the toughest of divorce cases to trial, including everything from divorces worth millions of dollars to serious child abuse cases to cases where spouses have turned to wage war against each other. Over the past 15 years of litigation experience, I have seen all of the highs and lows that come with making your way through a divorce. I created this podcast to help you gain insight and get into the right mindset so you can do a divorce by yourself, and to help you make all the right decisions along the way. Whether you're just thinking about divorce or are right in the middle of one, if you're looking for information, tools, inspiration, and a community to help you through it, you're in the right place. Welcome to the podcast, where I will be sharing with you all of my divorce secrets. In today's episode, we're talking about how much does a divorce in California really cost? We're going to go over true numbers, hard facts, and real expectations about the dollars you can absolutely expect to pay out of pocket in order to get your case done. But that's not all. I want to give you a little sneak peek, because even though we're going to talk about real cold numbers today, in the following weeks, we're going to be releasing additional podcast episodes, blogs, and YouTube videos all about the other costs in your divorce that you can expect. For example, our next episode is going to talk about, for those people who are considering hiring an attorney, understanding how exactly attorneys' fees work, and also understanding how you should set your frame of mind to pay for attorney's fees. If you've never paid for them before, sit down, buckle up, it's expensive. In addition to that, we're also going to have an episode all about how you can save money on things like attorney's fees, but also on all of the other fees and costs associated with your case. And last but certainly not least, we're also going to do one more episode on costs, and it's going to be all about the other costs in your case. What are the other costs? Those are the ones that are not dollar bills. The emotional costs, the toll that the costs will take on your family, planning for costs, and all of the unspoken things that secretly happen in divorce court that are ultimately a cost to you. So for now, let's get focused on real hard numbers, because that's why you came here. Starting first with your very, very first cost in the case. The first cost is going to be the fee that you will pay to the court in order to file your opening, moving, or petition papers. All three of those words mean the same thing, but it's the initial request filed by the first party to bring the case to court. The court in the state of California has a baseline fee for this. This is, at the moment, at the time of this recording, $435 to walk in the door. That means that you're going to pay at least $435 to the great state of California to say, "May I please get divorced?" So with that in mind, you'll want to set aside that amount of money at least to get in the door. I say at least because most counties charge only that amount. Other counties have add-on fees right at the outset of the case that bump the number a little higher. So you may expect about $435, $450, or somewhere around there if there are other additional administrative fees to open your case. Now, you might be thinking to yourself right off the bat, I don't even have $435. I can't file for a divorce then. Well, not so fast. The court does have options available for those who are in financial need. It's called a fee waiver, and every courthouse in the state of California has the option for you to make a request to ask the court to either waive your fees or to give you a payment plan so that you can pay your fees over time. Now, I talked a few moments ago about another episode that we have coming right up after this one about attorney's fees. We're going to dive deep in that episode about attorney's fees. But I can't do this episode without mentioning that fact. People right off the bat, when they come to see me, want to know, how much is this going to cost me? Not just this, the case, the filing fee, but this being everything. How much are the attorney's fees? How much am I going to pay out of pocket just to get this thing going? Well, attorney's fees vary broadly. And let me just say this, you don't need or have to have an attorney in California in order to move through your divorce. In fact, the vast majority of people will never speak to an attorney during their case. They will never hire one. And so most people going through the process are actually doing it for themselves. But if you're wondering how much are attorney's fees, at the time of this recording, the average sort of attorney fee range for what you would expect to pay for an attorney is between $300 and $500 in California. And that varies by county as to what the actual exact average is, but we're talking about big counties, big cities, and the small ones. So 300 might be a little high if you are out in a very rural area or a county where there are very few limited legal resources. But if you're in the big city and you're looking at competing with other people who want to file for divorce and use an attorney, you can expect the hourly rate to be pretty darn high. You might be wondering, hey, well, if there's more people in a city, then why are attorneys charging more in a city? Isn't that counterintuitive? You would think more attorneys means more competition, so the price would go down. Just the opposite. In fact, in big counties or where there's big cities, there are so many people who are clamoring to get an attorney in their case that the attorneys can't handle the workload. So most people who go unrepresented, even if they can afford attorneys, oftentimes don't. So keep that in mind. The family court system in California is designed to be accessible so that people can represent themselves, because most people do. So when you're thinking about costs in your case, big picture, you may speak with an attorney, you may have a limited relationship with an attorney, or you may not speak with one at all. But if you are going to look for an attorney, expect to spend hundreds, plural, of dollars per hour of that attorney's time. Let's talk next about mediation costs. In every county in the state of California, the court would like it and wants to, and oftentimes orders to, have people go to mediation. So every county is different, and we've got an awful lot of counties here in California. So I'm just going to do big picture on this for you. The mediation can be private, meaning it's outside of court and it's done between yourself, your spouse, and a neutral who's called a mediator. Or it can also be mandated by the court and available to you publicly. So some counties require, no matter what, that you can't finish your case without at least once having met with a neutral assigned by the court to help you settle your case. Other counties don't have the resources for this. So while they'd like you to mediate, maybe you just don't have to mediate. In either case, if you are going to do a court-appointed mediation or mandatory settlement conference, usually there's no additional fee for that. Again, it's really county specific though. So if you're not sure, take a look when it's time at your county's rules and fees associated with your divorce case. On the other side of this coin is private mediation. And the cost for that can vary widely. And the reason is it depends on who your mediator is. So you can use a neutral, such as an attorney who is offering services to help mediate, or you can use a neutral who is at the top of the scale, like a retired judge who has done family law for many, many years in the court, has retired, and is now offering mediation services for charge. Those judges typically are at the top of the price scale, and many times those judges won't actually see a person unless they're represented by counsel. So at the very top of the scale, some judges are charging upwards of $1,000 an hour to have your case heard at mediation. That's kind of mind-blowing because you can imagine one full day would cost you a substantial amount of money. But if you have a complex case with a lot of moving parts or a very contentious case, sometimes that big price tag is worth its weight in gold. On the other end of the scale, though, whether it's an attorney who's assisting and deciding to work as a neutral in your case, you can expect an average hourly rate for what those mediation services would include. Next, let's talk about other costs in your case. Other related costs will include things like motion filing fees, which get paid to the court if you decide to file a motion in your case. This too varies a bit by county, but it also varies by the type of motion you plan to file. But we're not talking about earth-shattering costs. We're talking about anywhere from about $60 for your baseline motion, perhaps up to $90 or $120 for that same motion if you're coming back to court more than once, or if you have to pay for a neutral to evaluate, or if you have to pay for transcription and costs of your court hearing. So those costs are going to vary by county and by what you're actually asking for. What about other costs that you'll pay in your case? Well, if you want a certified copy of any of your documents, most of the clerk's offices at the courthouse will charge a certification fee that's about $20 to $25, plus a printing fee per page of what you're asking to be certified. There can certainly be other costs too. So what am I talking about here? Well, maybe your case needs to have an expert work on the case. We're going to get into a range here of wide variety as to what kind of an expert you need, and also what is that expert's expertise, and what am I even talking about when I say an expert? Well, for example, an expert could be a very highly trained and sophisticated child custody evaluator who will be doing psychological testing and all kinds of other evaluations in your case. It could be a forensic expert who's going to look at the value or diminishing value of an asset or a variety of assets. It could be an expert who's going to look at spending in the case as to who spent what, or it could even be an expert who's going to analyze what the person is actually earning for income and do an income available for support analysis. As you can imagine from just this short list of examples of types of experts, and P.S. there's more, it can vary widely. It depends on what the expert is going to actually do in the case, and again, their level of expertise. So this is a bit of a question mark, kind of an unknown, but it is an expense to think about overall in the expenses of your case. Other routine expenses that might pop up in your case will include transcription costs to hire a court reporter and take down the notes and the transcript of what was said at a particular hearing in your case. And don't forget, at the very outset, you might also have some other costs too. In addition to the filing fees, you may have fees associated with trying to get your spouse served personally. So as you're getting ready to file your divorce, just remember there will be some out-of-pocket costs just to get things going. Before we wrap up, I want to talk with you about some other miscellaneous costs that can frequently show up in a court case if there are children involved or if there are other tasks that need to happen. I'll give you some examples. Very commonly, when a party brings a request for a child custody or visitation motion, the court will make some orders so that the parents can try to get along. This will often include orders like taking a private parenting class or an online parenting class. This can also include orders from the court that one party or both parties and the child or children all need to go to therapy, and that can be an out-of-pocket expense as well. Other costs related to custody will oftentimes include too, in cases where the parents have a hard time communicating, they may have to pay for an online communication tool to use in order to co-parent safely. Sometimes parties have such a difficult time moving their case forward that they need to hire what's called a special master. And that's a person the court appoints to help the parties move issues forward, like discovery. If someone is saying, hey, I want a bunch of documents or I want some information in the case, and there's just no moving that issue forward, the court can use these other tools, even though they're expensive, and order the parties to pay that expense if they're really getting into some thick water on getting things done in the case. In addition to all of that, there are other out-of-pocket unspoken costs that also arise too. What about things like moving costs? If one parent or one party is moving out of the house, there are going to be costs associated with that. Also, what about things like a little more simple? Paying document preparation costs, or utilizing other tools that assist you in moving the case forward. These can all spring up as well. And so I want you to think, as it relates to the big picture of your divorce, that there are costs that you should expect around almost every quarter. I'm not saying that divorce is impossible to afford. There are things that you can do to help save yourself money on these costs. So be sure to tune in to the next 3 episodes, because we will be doing a deep dive on how to get you through all of these costs. See you next time.